Who am I? Well, I'm your hurting hippie. But I'm a mix of all my mistakes, all my opportunities, all my successes, all my children, all my experiences. And I'm about to tell you about some of them. But first, let's experience this morning. Today is a beautiful, beautiful day in Calgary. It's already 6 degrees outside. There is a morning dew that is covering everything, and the sun is out and it's gorgeous. And I think you need to watch this, and I'll come right back. Wasn't that beautiful? I love a gorgeous morning. Good morning, y'all. I know good afternoon, good evening, good day. It could be a different time when you watch. But it's morning for me, and it's one of my better ones I've had in a long time. And I thought, you know what? I've got a couple hundred new subscribers since, 400 or 500 new subscribers since I last did a all about me or what about me or who am I kind of video. Because it's not easy to put 58 years into a small space. In my training at CP Rail, there was a group of us being pruned for upper management. And so we were all sent away to this one course that took a couple of weeks. They taught us that you have to be able to give a synopsis of your life depending on the audience and always keep it within 5 minutes, or you lose your audience. Because when you come across new people, they want to know who you are and can they trust you? Do they believe in you? Do they like what they see? And the more they know, the better they can make that choice. So who am I? I am an enigma. I always thought I was one thing, and a few years would go by and then I'd think I'm another, and then I realized, you know what? I'm just a bundle of stuff. So let's start with, I was born in Ontario in a small place called North York. At that time, it was quite a ways from Toronto. It is now a part of Weston, Ontario, which is a part of the greater city of Toronto. They call it GTA, Greater Toronto Area, where they usurped 5 or 6 of the cities that were surrounding it and made a greater area in hopes to save some money. That's where I started my life. My sister was born there too. My dad was working for CP Rail. Yes, we have. Our family, probably the longest stint of a family working for the railway still. We have an awful lot of cumulative years. So then my dad got transferred. We moved to Schreiber and then Sudbury, still both in Ontario. A little more northern, a little more cold. I don't remember it very well. My brother was born in Sudbury. Then my dad got transferred to Montreal, and we lived in Montreal for a couple of years where my younger sister was born. We had a bit of a tough time living there. We were living in an English community, but the people we lived with were all French. And we faced a lot of racism against white English people. People wouldn't talk to us. We had a difficult time getting around. My dad knew French, but at work he faced the same things. So my dad worked on getting a transfer, and we took a train all the way to Vancouver. I have very small memories of that train ride. I was 4 or 5 years old, and we went across Canada on a passenger train and ended up in Vancouver. I was very sick. I got double bronchial pneumonia. They thought they were going to lose me. Thanks to the good Vancouver hospitals, I came through. You can tell I'm here. I'm going a little too slow. I'm not very good at this. Okay, so then we moved to Vancouver, and up until grade 5, we were in Vancouver. I loved it. I remember so much about Vancouver. I still remember our phone number and our address in Vancouver. And we moved from there in grade 5. I was 10 years old. Then we moved to Kelowna, BC, the interior, the Okanagan, God's country. I spent from 10 to 18 in that beautiful, beautiful place. We were actually living in Rutland. It was a city of its own then, and then it got usurped by Kelowna, and now it's just a division of Rutland or a suburb. I grew up in God's country. It was warm in the winters, it was hot in the summers. We had all 4 seasons. It's a beautiful, beautiful place to grow up, and really, really enjoyed my life there. I, at a very young age, at 11, started playing in a rock band. I'm not proud of this. Started smoking cigarettes and started smoking cannabis. Not proud of that. I do wish people would wait until they're adult for those kind of things, and maybe they make better decisions. That's my... You may have hit the thumbs down by now. Thank you, because it's just interaction. Anyways, let's move on. At 17, my dad asked me if I wanted to work with him for a little while. He was going away. He needed somebody to look after his job at the railway. He had already checked with his bosses. They said it was okay if his son took over if he was any good. So I went and I trained with him for about 3-4 weeks. And then I took over for a month and a half. And they loved me. They loved me. I really enjoyed the job. I loved the work, the people, trucking. It was all about the trucking arm of the railway. Then it was called piggyback. Now it's called intermodal. I loved working with truck drivers. I loved working with the railway. And so the next year came around. I was 18, no longer in school. I quit school. That's a long story. I got to work for him again. And at the end of it, he said, make a resume, give it to me. I'll send it by company mail to the Western terminals, and maybe somebody will pick you up. And sure as heck, 2 weeks later, I got a phone call from somebody my dad knew since he was a young man. He says, you want to work in Edmonton? And I said, oh, geez, I think I'd like to. I'd have to give it some thought. And he says, well, you got about 2 hours. Call me back. And I called my dad and I talked to him. He says, you can't turn it down. This is a really good job, really good opportunity. But it's Edmonton. It's 1,000 kilometers away. And I had lived away from my mom and dad at 16 till 17. For a year, I lived in my own place with 5 or 6 other guys, and realized it wasn't working and moved back home. That's the extent of me being on my own. But I did it. I moved to Edmonton October 11, 1979, and I've been in Alberta ever since, and I've been on my own since. We're 9 minutes in, and I still haven't gotten past my 18th birthday. Should we do a second one? No, let's keep going. Are you going to stay with me? I hope you will. I'll go a little faster. I sure failed that course, didn't I? 5 minutes. Who am I? Moved to Edmonton. That's where we are. Moved to Edmonton. Then I met a young lady who already had a baby that was only maybe 2 months old. I fell in love with the baby, and I married the lady. And I adopted the baby and had 2 more kids. And I won't put her down. Life's too short. It just didn't work out, and I ended up raising those 3 kids. Since the third one was about a year old, I raised them for the rest of their lives. I was Mr. Mum, and I was Dad, and single father, looked after them all the time, and tried to keep my love for my work going and be a good dad. It was a difficult time and a beautiful time. During that time, lots of things happened, but I went back to school. I got my grade 12 equivalency, and then I got my degree in Bachelor of Commerce, an equivalent to the Bachelor of Commerce. And then I got Canadian Institute of Traffic and Transportation, Legal and Logistics. I just kept educating myself, gotten a real hook, and almost got my MBA. So I'm well educated. that boosted my career, and I started traveling all over the country. My kids were teens by then. I still kind of regret all that traveling because it was difficult for them going through their teen years with just me on the road. You did what you had to do to raise your family, and they understand it. They still call me a wonderful, wonderful dad. So I guess I got through it. I got so heavily involved in these programs and projects of CP Rail that I became known as their go-to guy to fix things. So I was sent all over the place and soon got in charge of multi-projects. And that's what, in 2000, they moved me to Calgary so I could be closer to headquarters so that I could run these projects. I ran the trucking division, all of southern Alberta and BC for quite a few years, 3 years. I did so many things. And I loved every moment of it. But it all came crashing down. I was 48 years old, 46 years old, somewhere around there. My mom got terribly sick. I lost my dog. I was losing my wife. Everything was going wrong. And I crashed. I had a mental, nervous, physical, complete breakdown, of which I'm still recovering. And I've spent my time since then on disability pension, trying to rebuild and trying to be the guy I used to be. But you know what? I think I'm there. Physically, mentally. My phone rings like, I have to do work on a computer, the thing that I excelled at all my life, creating software, creating new programs, creating computers. Something goes wrong on a computer, I'm sweat from head to toe. I can't do it. That's where I am now. A little bit broken here, but a beautiful memory, a beautiful life. I still have, as I said, I skipped a part. I did marry a second wife and had a fourth child. She was from Riga, Latvia. She's now here in Canada. We have a good friendship. It was pharmaceuticals that pushed her away from me because it turned me into an asshole. I never recovered and I lost her. And it took me years to find myself again. So here I am, the hurtin' hippie, still hurting. But I love y'all. I love my life. I love my family. I love what I do. Double the time, half the information. There's maybe so much more. Ask me if you care, if you're still here. I'd appreciate it. And you know what? Pitter patter. Let's get at her. One last thing. I'm going to have to cut a lot of that out. Little known fact. See, I'm having a little bit trouble getting my head together today. Little known fact. Dr. Ruth was trained as a sniper by the Israeli military. Isn't that interesting? Asperger syndrome is named for Austrian pediatrician Hans Asperger, who described it in 1944. He called his patients little professors. Peace and cheers. Thank you for sticking with me to the end. Love you all.